The little girl in the woman's arms looked already frozen. That was the detail that made Amador Perez slam on the brakes, the terrible, unnatural stillness of the child wrapped in her mother's failing embrace. This was a woman stumbling through a state of emergency blizzard, dressed like she'd just walked out of summer, carrying a daughter whose frost-rimmed lips weren't moving anymore. The streets were dead. The city was shut down, temperature dropping to lethal levels. Something pulled at him. Curiosity, maybe. Or something he'd buried years ago. Amador's driver started to protest. "Boss, we can't stop. Too much exposure." But Amador was already opening the door, already stepping into the killing wind, already removing his $4,000 jacket. He reached the woman just as her knees buckled, wrapped the jacket around her shaking shoulders. She collapsed against him. He caught her, then saw her daughter's face up close, innocent, helpless, dying, and something dormant exploded to life inside his chest. "Get in the car. Now." The woman was shaking so violently in the back seat that Amador thought she might break apart. Her teeth chattered like gunfire. Her arms locked around her daughter with the kind of desperate strength that came from knowing if she let go, she'd lose everything. The little girl, maybe 4 years old, dark curls plastered to her skull, wasn't shaking at all. That was worse. "Paulo," Amador said, his voice cutting through the howl of wind battering the Mercedes. "The penthouse. Fast." His driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, widening slightly. "Boss, shouldn't we hospital might be?" "No hospitals." Amador's tone left no room for negotiation. Hospitals meant questions. Questions meant exposure. Exposure meant complications he couldn't afford. Not with the federal task force already breathing down his neck, and the Ruiz syndicate looking for any weakness to exploit. "The penthouse. Mrs. Margaret will know what to do." Paulo's jaw tightened, but he nodded and pressed harder on the accelerator. The car fishtailed slightly on black ice before the tires caught, launching them forward through streets that looked like the end of the world, abandoned cars buried under snowdrifts, traffic lights swaying uselessly in the wind, not another soul stupid enough to be outside. Amador turned to look at his unexpected passengers. The woman's eyes were half closed, her lips moving soundlessly. Praying, maybe. Or just too far gone to form words. Her coat, if you could even call it that, was soaked through, thin fabric clinging to her frame like it was trying to drag her under. Her daughter wore even less. A cotton dress, a summer blanket, shoes that might have cost $10 at a thrift store. Who the hell walks into a blizzard dressed like that? Someone running, his instincts whispered. Someone desperate. He'd seen desperation before. Built an empire on it. Actually, desperation made people predictable, controllable. But this felt different. This felt like watching someone choose hypothermia over whatever they were running from. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice low, non-threatening. The woman's eyes cracked open, unfocused, glazed with cold and exhaustion. "What's your name?" Her lips moved. Nothing came out. "Your daughter," he tried again. "What's her name?" Maya. The word was barely a whisper, broken by violent shivers. "Please don't. I'm not going to hurt you," Amador said, and meant it, which was strange because he'd built a very successful career on hurting people when necessary. "We're taking you somewhere warm. You'll be safe." The woman's eyes locked onto his for one brief, terrifying moment of clarity. "No one's safe." Then she passed out completely, her head lolling against the window, arms still wrapped around her daughter like a vice, even in unconsciousness. "Jesus," Paulo muttered from the front seat. Amador said nothing. Just watched the woman's chest rise and fall in shallow breaths and wondered what kind of hell she'd walked through to end up dying in a snowstorm with her kid. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building Amador owned through so many shell corporations even he sometimes forgot the paper trail. Paulo pulled into the private garage, and Amador was out of the car before it fully stopped, yanking open the back door. The woman didn't stir when he lifted her. She weighed almost nothing, all bone and desperation. But the little girl's eyes snapped open the moment he tried to take her. "Mama!" The shriek was pure panic, tiny hands clawing at her mother's coat. "She's okay," Amador said quickly, awkwardly, because comforting terrified children wasn't exactly in his skill set. "I'm carrying her upstairs where it's warm. You can hold her hand. See?" He angled the woman so the girl could grab onto her mother's limp fingers. Right there, not letting go. The girl stared at him with huge, dark eyes, then slowly, reluctantly, wrapped her small hand around her mother's. "You promise?" The question hit harder than it should have. "Yeah, kid, I promise." The elevator ride to the penthouse felt endless. The girl watched him the entire time, silent now, evaluating. Amador had been evaluated by federal agents, rival bosses, men holding guns to his head. None of it felt quite as unnerving as this 4-year-old's unwavering stare. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse living room, all floor-to-ceiling windows currently being battered by snow, modern furniture that cost more than most people made in a year, art on the walls that Amador had bought because his interior designer said it, made a statement. He'd never actually looked at any of it. Dios mío. Mrs. Margaret appeared from the kitchen, wooden spoon still in hand, her weathered face shifting from surprise to horror in half a second. She'd worked for Amador for 8 years, asked no questions, kept his home running like clockwork, and had probably figured out what he did for a living within the first week. She'd never said a word about it. Señor Perez, what who? They were freezing to death in the storm, Amador said, heading toward the guest bedroom. I need hot water bottles, blankets, something warm to drink. The kid first. Mrs. Margaret didn't hesitate. The master bathroom, the tub is bigger. I'll start the water. Not too hot, we have to warm them slowly or… I know. Everyone knew that. Warm up a hypothermia victim too fast, and you could stop their heart. Just get everything ready. The next hour was controlled chaos. Mrs. Margaret filled the massive soaking tub with carefully temperature-regulated water, while Amador stripped the woman out of her soaked clothes with clinical efficiency, trying very hard not to notice how the cold had left her skin mottled purple and blue, or the fact that she had absolutely nothing underneath that wet coat except a threadbare dress that had seen better years. He wrapped her in his bathrobe, ridiculously oversized on her frame, and lowered her into the tub. She gasped when the water touched her skin, eyes flying open, hands scrabbling for purchase. Easy, Amador said, catching her wrists before she could panic and hurt herself. You're okay. You're safe. Your daughter's right here. Because she was. Mrs. Margaret had Maya in a separate bath in the adjoining room, visible through the open door, and the little girl was already regaining color, her blue-tinged lips fading to pink as she sat in warm water up to her chest. Ashley, he'd found a wallet in her coat pocket, saw the name on an expired driver's license, stared at him like she couldn't quite process what was happening. Where? My place. You collapsed. You were hypothermic. Maya is fine. Look. He turned her head gently toward the doorway where Mrs. Margaret was washing Maya's hair, speaking to her in soft, soothing Spanish. The little girl was actually smiling, tentatively, at something the older woman said. Ashley's entire body sagged with relief, so profound it looked painful. Then she started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears streaming down her face, her shoulders shaking with something deeper than cold. Amador stood there, dripping water on his expensive floor, holding this stranger's wrists while she fell apart, and had absolutely no idea what to do. Comfort wasn't his thing. Emotional rescue wasn't in his repertoire. He trafficked in intimidation and calculated violence and strategic manipulation, but he didn't let go. 20 minutes later, both Ashley and Maya were out of the baths, wrapped in blankets that probably cost more than Ashley's entire former wardrobe, sitting on the leather couch while Mrs. Margaret pressed mugs of hot soup into their hands. Maya drank hers eagerly, color fully returned to her cheeks, while Ashley just held hers, staring at the steam rising like she'd forgotten what warmth felt like. Is the scary man gonna hurt us? Maya's question dropped into the quiet like a grenade. She was looking directly at Amador, who'd been standing by the window, trying to give them space, while also making sure they didn't bolt the second his back was turned. He turned slowly, found those huge, dark eyes locked on him again, and felt something twist in his chest. The question wasn't asked with fear. Exactly. More like resignation. Like she'd already decided he probably would hurt them, and she was just confirming the inevitable. Amador crossed the room, stopped a few feet away, and crouched down so he was at Maya's eye level. Up close, she looked even smaller, even more fragile. There was a small scar above her left eyebrow, a healing bruise on her shin, signs of a life that hadn't been gentle. No, kid, he said, and his voice came out rougher than intended. You're safe here. Maya studied him for a long moment, then looked at her mother, who was watching the exchange with an expression Amador couldn't quite read. Hope and terror and exhaustion all mixed together. Okay, Maya said finally, and went back to her soup like that settled it. Ashley, on the other hand, looked like she was about 2 seconds from running. Her eyes darted around the penthouse, taking in the expensive everything. The view that probably cost 8 figures. the art on the walls that screamed money and power and danger. Where am I? Her voice was steadier now, warming from the inside out, but there was an edge to it, survival instinct kicking back in. Who are you? Amador stood, maintaining distance, keeping his posture open and non-threatening. Somewhere safe. Someone who doesn't let people freeze to death. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving right now. He gestured to the windows where the blizzard still raged, visibility down to maybe 10 feet. Storm's supposed to last another day, maybe 2. Stay until it passes. Get warm, rest. Then we'll figure out next steps. Ashley's jaw tightened. And if I want to leave now? Then you'll die within 20 minutes of stepping outside, and your daughter will be right behind you. Brutal honesty, but necessary. So maybe don't do that. The silence stretched. Ashley's hands tightened around her mug. Maya, oblivious to the tension, yawned hugely and leaned against her mother's side. Finally, Ashley spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why did you stop? It was a good question. One Amador didn't have a good answer for. He'd driven past homeless people before, past addicts freezing in doorways, past problems that weren't his to solve. He'd built an empire by knowing when to get involved and when to keep moving. But something about seeing that little girl's stillness, that mother's desperate stumbling, had bypassed every rational calculation in his brain and hit something deeper, something he'd thought died years ago. I don't know, he said, and it was maybe the most honest thing he'd said in a decade. But I did. So here we are. Ashley held his gaze for a long moment, searching for something lies, probably, or ulterior motives, because in her experience, people like him didn't do things without expecting something back. She wouldn't find what she was looking for, mostly because Amador didn't know what his motives were either. Okay, she said finally, echoing her daughter. Until the storm passes. Until the storm passes, Amador agreed. Neither of them believed it would be that simple. They were both right. The blizzard didn't stop. For 3 days, the world outside Amador's floor-to-ceiling windows remained a white void, the kind of storm that made the news anchors use words like historic and unprecedented and life-threatening. The city shut down completely. No cars, no people, just endless snow and wind that sounded like the world screaming. Inside the penthouse, something else was happening. Something Amador hadn't anticipated and didn't know how to control. They were becoming real to each other. It started small. Ashley emerging from the guest bedroom on the second morning, Maya's hand clutched in hers, both of them wearing clothes. Mrs. Margaret had somehow procured soft sweats that actually fit, thick socks, a oversized sweater that swallowed Ashley's frame. She looked younger without the exhaustion carved into her face. Maybe 30, maybe less. Coffee? Amador offered, because he didn't know what else to say to a woman he'd rescued from freezing, who now stood in his kitchen looking like she might bolt at any sudden movement. Please. Ashley's voice was still cautious, but the hypothermic rasp had faded. If it's not too much trouble. It's coffee, not a kidney. He poured 2 cups, slid one across the marble counter. Mrs. Margaret made breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit. Kid-friendly. Maya's eyes went wide at the spread laid out on the dining table. All of that? For us? The question gutted him more than it should have. Yeah, kid. All of that. Eat whatever you want. Ashley watched her daughter attack a plate of scrambled eggs with the intensity of someone who didn't know when the next meal might come, and something painful flickered across her face. Pride, maybe, or shame, probably both. Thank you, she said quietly. For this, for everything. We'll be out of your way as soon as the storm clears. Amador nodded, said nothing, and wondered why the thought of them leaving made his chest feel tight. By the afternoon of day 2, Maya had decided Amador was no longer scary. This was a problem, because Maya had also decided that Amador was the most interesting person in the penthouse, and had appointed herself his shadow. She followed him from room to room, asking questions with the relentless curiosity of a 4-year-old who'd never learned that some people preferred silence. Why is your couch so big? Why do you have so many windows? Why don't you have a TV in every room? Do you like dinosaurs? I like dinosaurs. The big ones with the long necks. What's your favorite dinosaur? Amador, who'd once stared down a rival boss threatening to start a territory war without blinking, found himself completely disarmed by 40 pounds of relentless questioning. Brachiosaurus, he heard himself say. The long neck ones. They were tall. Maya's face lit up like he just revealed the secrets of the universe. Me too. Mama says they were nice dinosaurs because they didn't eat meat. Herbivores, Amador confirmed, then immediately questioned why he was having a conversation about dinosaur diets. Ashley watched from the doorway, something unreadable in her expression. Amusement, maybe. Or surprise. Or the beginning of trust, which was infinitely more dangerous. That evening, after Mrs. Margaret had left for the night, navigating the still terrible weather to her own apartment, with the kind of stubborn determination that made Amador pay her 3 times the going rate, Ashley finally started talking. Really talking. They were in the living room, Maya, asleep on the couch between them, wrapped in a blanket that cost more than Ashley's former monthly rent. The storm battered the windows. The lights of the city barely penetrated the whiteout. It felt like they were the only 3 people left in the world. I grew up with money, Ashley said suddenly, staring at her wineglass. Amador had opened a bottle, offered her some, watched her hesitate before accepting. Real money. The kind where you don't think about prices, you just buy things. My father owned half the commercial real estate downtown. My mother threw charity galas that made the society pages. Amador said nothing, just listened. He was good at listening. People told you everything if you just stayed quiet long enough. They had plans for me. Good schools, good marriage, good life. All very controlled, very perfect. Ashley's laugh was bitter. Then I met Jason in high school. He was. God, he was everything they hated. Wrong background, wrong prospects, wrong everything. Which of course made him irresistible to their rebellious daughter. Let me guess, Amador said. They forbade you from seeing him. Worse. They tolerated him. Smiled through dinners. Pretended to approve. Then told me privately that if I married him, I was on my own. They'd cut me off completely. Ashley took a long sip of wine. I thought they were bluffing. Turns out, rich people don't bluff. They just follow through and sleep fine at night. So you married him anyway. So I married him anyway. Ashley's smile was sad. 20 years old, pregnant, disowned, and convinced love would be enough. Spoiler alert. It wasn't. Maya stirred in her sleep, made a small sound. Ashley's hand automatically went to her daughter's hair, smoothing it back with the kind of unconscious tenderness that made Amador's chest ache. Jason was. He tried, at first. Got jobs, lost jobs, got new ones. We struggled, but I thought we were building something. Then Maya was born, and things got harder. Money got tighter. He got desperate. Ashley's voice dropped. That's when I found out what he was really doing to keep us afloat. The shipments, the deals, the kind of people showing up at our apartment at 3 a.m. Amador's expression didn't change, but something cold settled in his gut. Illegal items. Yeah. Ashley's laugh was hollow. Turns out walking away from dealers when you're broke and pregnant isn't the empowerment moment they show in movies. It's terrifying and stupid, and you end up homeless with a toddler, wondering if your ex is going to find you and make you disappear because you know too much. Is that why you were in the blizzard? Running? Ashley was quiet for a long moment. Always running. For 2 years now. Shelters, friends' couches, women's centers. Anywhere Jason wouldn't think to look. The blizzard, we were staying at a church shelter. They kicked everyone out when the building lost heat. I thought I could make it to another shelter across town. I was wrong. You almost died. Story of my life lately. Ashley's smile was crooked, self-deprecating. Making terrible decisions and somehow surviving them. Until you. Their eyes met. Held. Something electric passed between them. Recognition of a sort, 2 people who'd made choices that led them to this impossible moment, snowbound and circling each other like they couldn't decide if the other was salvation or destruction. Amador looked away first. What you did leaving when you knew it was dangerous that took guts. Or stupidity. I haven't decided which. Both, probably. Most brave things are. Ashley studied him, curiosity replacing some of the guardedness. What about you? What do you do that affords? She gestured at the penthouse, the view, the everything. Amador had prepared for this question, had a perfect cover story ready, rehearsed and bulletproof. Import-export, corporate logistics, moving products from point A to point B. Boring stuff, really. It wasn't technically a lie. He did move products, just not the legal kind. Ashley nodded slowly, but something in her eyes said she didn't quite believe him. Must be pretty successful, boring stuff. I'm good at what I do. I bet you are. The way she said it made Amador wonder exactly what she suspected. but she didn't push, just sipped her wine and changed the subject. Maya likes you. That's rare. She doesn't trust easily. Not after everything with Jason. Smart kid. She asked me this morning if we could stay here forever. Ashley's voice cracked slightly. Had to explain that this isn't our home. That you're just being kind until the storm passes, she cried. First time in months. The words hit Amador harder than they should have. Ashley, don't. She held up a hand. Don't make promises. Don't tell me it'll be okay. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Just let us have these few days of warmth and safety, and pretending the world isn't waiting to chew us up the second we step outside. Amador wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she could stay, that he'd make sure Jason never found her, that he could fix this. But the words died in his throat, because fixing things wasn't what he did. He broke them, controlled them, profited from them. He didn't save people, except apparently he'd saved her. And now he couldn't stop looking at the way the lamplight caught in her dark hair, or the fierce protectiveness in her eyes when she looked at her sleeping daughter, or the strength it must have taken to walk away from everything familiar and choose the uncertainty of survival over the comfort of complicity. Day 3 brought a strange domesticity Amador had never experienced. Maya dragged him into playing elaborate games involving her stuffed dinosaurs apparently rescued from Ashley's backpack, which contained everything they owned in the world. Ashley cooked breakfast with Mrs. Margaret, laughing at something the older woman said, and the sound filled spaces in the penthouse that had been silent for years. That evening, Maya appeared at Amador's office door. He'd been catching up on business, making calls, managing operations that didn't stop just because the world was buried in snow, clutching a worn picture book. Will you read to me? Her voice was small, hopeful. Mama's tired and Mrs. Margaret went home and I'm not sleepy yet. Amador looked at the child, then at the book, something about a caterpillar that ate too much, then at Ashley hovering behind her daughter with an apologetic expression. She doesn't have to, Ashley said quickly. Maya, we talked about bothering Mr. Perez. Amador, he corrected. Then to Maya. Yeah, kid, I'll read to you. Maya's smile could have powered the entire city. They settled on the couch, Maya tucked against his side with her book open on his lap. Amador read with the awkward stiffness of someone who'd never done this before, stumbling over voices for different characters, but Maya didn't seem to care. She just listened with complete attention, occasionally correcting his pronunciation of made-up caterpillar words. Ashley watched from across the room, and when Amador glanced up, he saw something in her expression that terrified him. Not fear, not suspicion, longing. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep mid-story and Ashley had carried her to bed, Ashley returned to find Amador still on the couch, staring at nothing. Thank you, she said softly. For reading to her, you didn't have to, she asked. You could have said no. I know. Amador looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something shift in his chest, something dangerous and inevitable. I didn't want to. The silence between them felt alive, charged with possibility and danger and the electric pull of two people recognizing something in each other they hadn't known they were missing. Ashley took a step closer, then another. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone scarier. Someone colder. She was close enough now that he could smell her shampoo, something floral that Mrs. Margaret must have provided. You are those things. I can see it. But you're also kind. In a way that surprises you. Ashley, his voice came out rougher than intended. I know this is temporary. I know we leave when the storm ends. I know you're dangerous. I can feel it, even if I can't prove it. Her eyes searched his face. But you're also the first person in 2 years who didn't look at me like I was invisible, who saw me struggling and stopped, who made my daughter smile. Amador stood, needing distance, needing to think clearly. But Ashley followed, closing the space between them. He's dangerous, she'd think later, lying in the guest bed with Maya curled beside her. Everything about him screams danger. The penthouse, the vagueness, the way his eyes go cold when his phone rings. But he wrapped his jacket around a freezing stranger. He reads bedtime stories with terrible character voices. He looks at my daughter like she matters. And that was the most dangerous thing of all, because Ashley was starting to believe that maybe, impossibly, they mattered to him too. Quick poll. Will Amador choose love or his empire? Comment red heart for love or black for empire. Please kindly subscribe now as the next chapter reveals secrets. Thank you. The storm broke on the fourth day. Ashley woke to silence, the kind of profound quiet that only comes after days of relentless wind, and looked out the guest bedroom window to see the city emerging from its white cocoon. Plows were already carving through streets. The sun was out, weak but determined. The world was moving again, which meant it was time to leave. She packed their meager belongings with mechanical efficiency, folding the borrowed clothes Mrs. Margaret had given them, making sure Maya's dinosaur book was safely tucked in her backpack. Maya sat on the bed watching, her small face crumpling with understanding. "We have to go?" Her voice was tiny, hopeful it might not be true. "Yeah, baby. We have to go. But I like it here. I like Amador. He promised to teach me more dinosaur names." Ashley's heart cracked cleanly down the middle. "I know, but this isn't our home. We were just visiting until the storm ended. Can't we visit longer?" Before Ashley could answer, Amador appeared in the doorway. He looked different in the morning light, less polished, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of the expensive suits, hair slightly mussed. More human, more dangerous because of it. "You're leaving." "Not a question. Storm's over. Time to get back to reality." Ashley kept her voice light, casual, like her chest wasn't being crushed by the weight of walking back into homelessness with her daughter. Amador was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I have a proposal." Ashley's hand stilled on the backpack zipper. "I'm not interested in..." "Not that kind of proposal." His voice was rough, almost nervous, which was strange because nervous didn't seem like an emotion this man experienced. "I have a guest house, small place, separate from the main property. 1 bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. It's empty, has been for years." Ashley stared at him. "I don't understand." "Stay there. Let me help you get back on your feet. Find a job, get Maya into preschool, save some money. No rent, no strings, just stay." The offer hung in the air like something fragile and impossible. Ashley's first instinct was to refuse. She'd learned the hard way that men who offered help always wanted something in return. Always. But she looked at Maya, who was watching Amador with naked hope, and felt her resolve crumble. "Why?" The word came out sharper than intended. "Why would you do that?" Amador's jaw tightened. "Because I can. Because you need it. Because..." He stopped, seemed to reconsider, then finished quietly. "Because I want to." Ashley wanted to say no. Wanted to grab her daughter and walk out and prove she could survive without accepting charity from a stranger, whose eyes sometimes went cold as winter, and whose phone conversations happened behind closed doors, in voices too low to hear. But desperation was a powerful thing. "For Maya's sake," she heard herself say. "Just until I can afford our own place." Something flickered in Amador's expression. Relief, maybe. Or victory. "For Maya's sake," he agreed. That was 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks of Ashley slowly rebuilding a life she'd thought was gone forever. The guest house was small but perfect, clean, safe, warm. Amador had arranged a job for her at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Didn't ask questions when the owner hired her without checking references too closely. He enrolled Maya in a preschool that cost more per month than Ashley used to make in 3. Insisted it was already paid for, don't worry about it. He never asked for anything in return. Never made her feel like she owed him. Just showed up sometimes with groceries, or fixed the guest house's temperamental heating, or took Maya to the park when Ashley worked late shifts. And somewhere in those 6 weeks, somewhere between the late-night conversations on the guest house porch and the way he looked at her like she was something precious instead of broken, Ashley made a catastrophic mistake. She fell in love with him. It happened in small moments. The way he listened when she talked, really listened, like her words mattered. The careful distance he maintained, never pushing, never pressuring, just waiting for her to come to him. The morning she found him teaching Maya to tie her shoes, his large hands guiding her small ones with impossible patience, his voice soft in a way she'd never heard him use with anyone else. "You're good with her," Ashley had said, watching from the doorway. Amador had looked up, something vulnerable in his expression. "She's a good kid. Makes it easy. She thinks you hung the moon. She's got low standards." Ashley had laughed, moved closer. "I don't think so." That was the first time they'd kissed tentative and careful, like they were both afraid the other might shatter. But the second kiss was less careful, and the third was desperate. 6 weeks of tension finally breaking like a dam. Now, standing in Amador's main house kitchen at 11 p.m., because Maya was having a sleepover at a preschool friend's house, and Ashley had been invited for wine. She felt the weight of how far they'd come and how impossible it all was. "I've done terrible things, Ashley." Amador's voice was low, his fingers tracing patterns on her wrist where they sat on the couch, the city lights sprawling below them. "Things I can't take back. Things that would probably make you run if you knew." Ashley's heart hammered. "Then don't tell me. You deserve to know. I deserve to decide what I can handle." She turned to face him fully. "I know you're not an import-export. I'm not stupid. I know there's something else. Something dangerous. But I also know you saved my life. You gave us a home. You look at my daughter like she matters. So, whatever else you are, you're also that." Amador's expression was anguished. "Ashley, with you I feel safe for the first time in years. With you I want to be different too. Want to believe I can be more than just someone running." She touched his face, felt him lean into her palm. "So unless you're about to tell me you're planning to hurt us, I don't need to know everything. Not yet." He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I would never hurt you. Either of you. I'd burn the world down first." The intensity of the promise should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel powerful. They were still tangled together on the couch an hour later when Amador's phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again, and again. "Answer it," Ashley murmured against his chest. "Could be important." Amador kissed her forehead, extracted himself reluctantly, and walked to the windows to take the call. Ashley stayed on the couch, comfortable and warm, only half listening until certain words cut through her contentment like glass. "The shipment arrives Tuesday. Make sure the routes are clean. I don't care about his excuses, Paulo. If Jason's crew tries to intercept again, we eliminate the problem. The Ruiz syndicate is getting bold. Time to remind them what happens when they touch our territory." Ashley's blood turned to ice. Shipment, eliminate, Ruiz syndicate. The same words Jason had used. The same conversations she'd overheard in their cramped apartment at 3 a.m. while she pretended to sleep and prayed he wouldn't notice her shaking. No. Amador ended the call, turned back with a smile that died the instant he saw her face. "Ashley, you're a dealer." Her voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body. "You're one of them." The silence stretched too long. Amador's expression shifted, the warmth draining out, replaced by something harder, more familiar. The man who'd stopped in a blizzard and the man standing before her now suddenly felt like two different people. "Ashley, let me explain. Are you—" She was on her feet now, backing toward the door. "Are you a dealer? It's more complicated than, are you?" "Yes." The word was flat, final. "But I'm worse than them. I run them." The room tilted. Ashley grabbed the counter to steady herself, bile rising in her throat. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of falling for a man who was exactly what she'd run from, exactly what had destroyed her life the first time. Oh, God. The laugh that escaped her was broken, hysterical. "I'm so stupid. I'm so incredibly stupid." "You're not. Don't." She held up a hand, tears streaming now. "Don't tell me what I am. Don't tell me this is different. I've heard it all before. Jason said the same things. It's complicated. It's not what you think. I'm doing it for us." And I believed him until I couldn't anymore. Amador took a step toward her. Ashley took 2 back. "Ashley, please. Just listen." "And Jason?" The question came out quiet, deadly. "You mentioned Jason's crew. Jason Walsh. You know him?" Amador's face went carefully blank. "He works for the Ruiz syndicate, my rivals." Ashley's knees nearly gave out. "Your rivals. Your enemies." The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. "Oh, God. If Jason finds out I'm with you, if he knows where I am, he won't touch you." Amador's voice went cold, lethal. "I'll end him first. Him and anyone else who even thinks about hurting you." "Stop." Ashley was screaming now, years of terror and betrayal pouring out. "Stop acting like you're protecting me. You are the danger. You're exactly what I've been running from. You're the reason people like me end up homeless and terrified and—" She couldn't finish, couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in, the expensive penthouse suddenly feeling like a cage. "I need to leave. Now. Ashley, it's late. Just wait until morning." I said now. She was already running for the guest house, for Maya's things, for anything that would get them away from this nightmare. Amador followed, his voice desperate in a way she'd never heard. "Please, just let me explain. Let me keep you safe." "You can't keep me safe." Ashley whirled on him, tears and rage and heartbreak twisting her face. "You're the thing I need to be safe from. Don't you understand? You're him. You're Jason. You're every mistake I've ever made, wrapped up in expensive suits and kind gestures and lies. It wasn't lies. Not with you. Then what was it? She was sobbing now, shoving Maya's clothes into the backpack with shaking hands. What do you call falling for someone when you know they're exactly what will destroy you? Love. The word dropped like a bomb. I call it love. Ashley froze, her hands stilling on the zipper. For one impossible moment, she wanted to believe him, wanted to turn around and let him convince her this was different, that he was different, that somehow love could exist in a world built on violence and illegal shipments and eliminating problems. But she'd believed that once before, and it had nearly ended her. I can't. Her voice broke completely. I can't do this again. I won't. She grabbed the backpack, grabbed her coat, and walked out into the cold March night without looking back. Behind her, Amador stood in the doorway of the guest house, watching her go. His expression carved from stone, but his eyes betraying something that looked dangerously close to devastation. If you need anything, he called after her. I won't. Ashley didn't turn around. Couldn't. If she looked at him, she'd crumble. Stay away from us, please. Just stay away. She made it 3 blocks before the tears blinded her completely. Made it to the 24-hour diner where she called the shelter, begged for a bed, promised she'd be there within the hour. Made it exactly nowhere in terms of forgetting the way Amador had looked at her daughter. The way he'd read bedtime stories with terrible voices. The way he'd promised to burn the world down to keep them safe. The way she'd almost believed him. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The guest house is yours as long as you need it. The job, too. No strings. No contact if you don't want it. But you're not alone. Ashley deleted it with shaking hands, then immediately regretted it. Because the truth was worse than the betrayal. She was still in love with him. Still wanted to believe that somehow, impossibly, a man who ran criminal empires could also be the man who'd saved her life. But wanting something didn't make it safe. And Ashley had learned the hard way that survival meant choosing safety over desire, every single time, even when it broke her heart. 2 weeks in a shelter felt like 2 years. Ashley had forgotten how the nights stretched endless when you were listening for footsteps, for voices, for any sign that the person you were running from had finally found you. She'd forgotten the fluorescent lights that never quite turned off, the smell of industrial cleaning supplies mixed with desperation, the way Maya cried silently into her pillow because even at 4 years old, she understood that noise drew attention. Ashley had also forgotten how much fear weighed. It sat on her chest at night, pressed against her lungs during the day, made every stranger's face look like Jason's until she checked twice, 3 times, convinced herself she was just being paranoid. Except she wasn't paranoid. Jason was looking for her. She could feel it the way prey feels a predator circling that animal instinct that screamed run, even when there was nowhere left to go. The shelter counselor had noticed. Asked careful questions about whether Ashley felt safe, whether there was someone she was hiding from, whether they needed to implement additional security measures. Ashley had lied smoothly, said everything was fine, she was just adjusting. The counselor hadn't believed her, but she hadn't pushed. Maya was the one suffering most. She'd stopped talking about Amador after the first 3 days of asking when they could go back to the warm house with the nice man. Now she just clutched her dinosaur book and stared at nothing. And Ashley wanted to scream at the universe for being cruel enough to give her daughter a glimpse of safety before ripping it away. Her phone, the same one she'd almost thrown away a dozen times, buzzed constantly with texts from unknown numbers. She never read them, just deleted them, and tried not to think about what they might say. Tried not to think about Amador at all. Failed spectacularly. It was Tuesday evening, 2 weeks and 3 days after she'd walked out of the guest house, when Ashley's carefully constructed denial came crashing down. She was walking back from the coffee shop they'd kept her on, thank God. Even though she'd missed 3 shifts that first week with Maya's hand clutched in hers. The shelter was 6 blocks away. The sun was setting. The streets were moderately crowded. She should have been safe. Ashley. The voice froze her mid-step. She knew that voice. Had heard it whisper promises and scream accusations. Had heard it slurred with substances and sharp with violence. She turned slowly, every muscle coiled to run, and there he was. Jason Walsh looked worse than she remembered. Thinner, jittery, his eyes carrying that glassy shine that said he was high on something strong. His clothes were expensive, though new jacket, designer shoes. The Ruiz syndicate was clearly paying well. Jason. Ashley's voice came out steadier than she felt. She shifted Maya behind her, felt her daughter's small hands grip her coat. You need to leave. Jason laughed, the sound ugly and sharp. That's cute. Real cute. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Ash. Not after what you've been up to. I don't know what you're talking about. No? He took a step closer. Ashley took one back. So you're not sleeping with Amador Perez? You're not shacking up with the biggest kingpin in the city? Because that's real interesting, considering you left me for being in the game. Ashley's heart stopped. Don't lie to me. Jason's voice cracked like a whip. People on the street were starting to notice, starting to give them space. No one intervened. They never did. The Ruiz Syndicate has intelligence on Perez's new weakness. Imagine my surprise when that weakness turned out to be my ex-wife and daughter. We're not together, Ashley said desperately. I left. We're not. But you were. Jason was close enough now that she could smell the chemical sharpness on his breath. You left me because you were too good for the game, too moral, too pure. But you'll spread your legs for the man who runs the whole damn empire? Don't. Ashley's voice shook with rage. Don't you dare. What? Tell the truth? That you're a hypocrite? That our daughter's been living with a criminal worse than I ever was? Maya whimpered. Ashley felt something crack inside her chest, not fear anymore, but fury. Our daughter was homeless because of you. Freezing because of you. Everything I did was to protect her from the life you chose. Jason moved fast, grabbed her arm with bruising force. You don't get to blame me for your choices. Let go. You're coming with me, both of you. Ruiz wants to meet Perez's weakness, wants to see what kind of leverage we can get. Ashley tried to pull away. Jason's grip tightened. Maya started screaming high, terrified sounds that made people finally turn, finally pay attention, finally reach for phones. Help! Ashley shouted. Someone help. Then a voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Let her go. Amador materialized from the crowd like he'd stepped out of shadows. And Ashley's first thought was, how did he know? Her second was run, and her third was how much she wanted to collapse into his arms and never move again. Jason's face twisted with vicious satisfaction. Well, Perez himself. Come to save your girl? Last chance. Amador's voice was lethally calm, his eyes fixed on where Jason's hand gripped Ashley's arm. Let her go. Or what? Jason pulled Ashley closer, used her as a shield, and Ashley felt the cold press of metal against her ribs. Gun. He had a gun. You can't touch me. Ruiz will start a war if you harm me. This whole street will light up. Amador's expression didn't change, but something murderous flickered behind his eyes. His men, Ashley counted 5, maybe 6, had materialized around them, forming a loose circle that cut off escape routes. You think I care about war? Amador took one step forward. Jason pressed the gun harder. Maya was sobbing now, clutching Ashley's leg. You think I care about Ruiz? Or territory or any of it? You're a businessman, Perez. You care about profits. I did. Another step. Amador's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Then I met her. Met that kid. And suddenly profits don't mean a damn thing compared to making sure they're safe. Jason laughed, but it sounded uncertain. So what? You're going to start a syndicate war over some woman you've known for 2 months? No. Amador's smile was terrifying. I'm going to walk away. I'm done. I'm out. Retiring. Effective. Immediately. But here's the thing. Jason and you listen carefully. Because I'm only saying this once. If you or Ruiz or anyone in your pathetic syndicate comes near my family again, there won't be a war. There'll be a massacre. And I'll make sure you're the last one alive to watch everyone you know die first. The street went silent. Even Maya's crying faded to hiccups. Ashley stared at Amador, her mind refusing to process what she'd just heard. Walk away. Done. Out. Family. Jason's hand trembled. You're bluffing. Try me. Amador's voice was ice and death. You've got 3 seconds to let her go. 3, 2, boss. One of Amador's men murmured. Cops are coming. Someone called. Good. Amador pulled out his phone, never breaking eye contact with Jason. Detective Rowan. Yeah, it's me. I've got a present for you. Corner of 5th and Madison. Jason Walsh. Works for the Ruiz Syndicate. Trafficking. Distribution. Assault with a deadly weapon. He rattled off charges like reading a grocery list. I'll have evidence delivered to your office within the hour. Enough to put him away for 20 years. Maybe 30 if you're creative. Jason's face drained of color. You can't. The police don't. Rowan works for you. Worked for me. Past tense. Amador's smile was cold. Turns out I'm more interested in keeping my family safe than maintaining corrupt cops on payroll. Funny how priorities shift. Sirens wailed in the distance. Jason's grip on Ashley loosened for just a second, enough for her to wrench free and grab Maya, stumbling backward into Amador's arms. He caught her without looking, his eyes still locked on Jason. "You're going to regret this," Jason spat. Ruiz will. Ruiz will do nothing because I'm about to hand him a very generous severance package in exchange for leaving this city and never coming back. And if he refuses, I'll remind him that I know where all his operations are, who all his suppliers are, and exactly how to dismantle everything he's built in under 48 hours. Amador's voice never rose above conversational. He's a businessman. He'll take the deal. The cops arrived in a screech of sirens. Jason tried to run. Amador's men stopped him with efficient brutality. Detective Rowan, a grizzled cop who looked like he'd seen everything and believed nothing, took one look at the scene and sighed. Perez. Didn't expect this call. Life's full of surprises. Amador handed him a USB drive. Everything you need. Trafficking routes, supplier contacts, distribution records. Walsh's prints are all over it. Rowan pocketed the drive, then looked at Ashley and Maya with something almost like pity. The family? Off limits. Completely. Forever. And you? Out. Done. You'll have my full cooperation on anything that doesn't implicate them. Amador's jaw was tight. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Rowan studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Federal prosecutors are going to want to talk. They know where to find me. They watched as Jason was cuffed and dragged toward a patrol car, screaming threats that no one paid attention to. The crowd was dispersing. The show was over. Amador turned to Ashley. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Maya wrapped around her like a vice. You've been watching me. Not a question. Since the day you left. He didn't apologize for it. I couldn't. I had to know you were safe. You just gave up everything. Ashley's voice broke. Your empire. Your business. It wasn't mine to keep if it meant losing you. Amador reached out, stopped just short of touching her. I meant what I said. I'm done. I'm out. No more shipments. No more territory. No more anything except figuring out how to be the man you and Maya deserve. Ashley wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. But she'd believed Jason once, had believed love was enough to overcome everything. How do I know? She couldn't finish. Couldn't ask how she was supposed to trust this. Trust him. Trust that he wouldn't wake up in 6 months and resent her for everything he'd sacrificed. Amador seemed to understand anyway. You don't. Not yet. But I'm going to spend however long it takes proving it to you. No pressure. No expectations. Just let me prove it. Maya's voice was small and muffled against Ashley's shoulder. Is the scary man gone? Yeah, baby, Ashley whispered. He's gone. Is Amador scary? Ashley looked at the man in front of her who'd stopped his car in a blizzard, who'd read bedtime stories with terrible voices, who'd just publicly declared war on his entire world to keep them safe, and felt something shift. No, baby. He's not scary. She met Amador's eyes, saw the desperate hope there, the vulnerability he was trying so hard to hide. He's brave. Amador's expression cracked. Just for a moment. Can I take you home? To the shelter? To the guest house, if you'll come. No strings. No expectations. Just somewhere safe, while we figure out what comes next. Ashley knew she should say no. Should maintain distance. Should protect herself and her daughter from the inevitable heartbreak of trusting someone whose past was built on violence. But Maya was already reaching for Amador, her small voice breaking. Please, Mama? Please, can we go to the warm house? And Ashley was so tired of running, so tired of being strong, so tired of pretending she didn't love this man who'd just sacrificed everything for them. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Amador's smile was like sunrise after endless winter. He held out his hand. Ashley took it, and for the first time in years, she let herself hope that maybe, impossibly, this could actually work. The meetings took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Amador sitting across from federal prosecutors and Ruiz syndicate representatives, dismantling everything he'd built over 15 years. 3 weeks of Ashley watching from the guesthouse windows, terrified that any moment he'd change his mind, decide the cost was too high, choose power over them. He didn't. She watched him come home each night looking more exhausted, more hollowed out, but also somehow lighter. Like each piece of his empire he surrendered lifted weight he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand upright. They want everything. he told her one night, standing in her doorway because she still wouldn't let him fully inside, still kept that careful distance between them. Names, locations, supply routes, financial records, 20 years of intelligence in exchange for immunity. And you're giving it to them? Ashley asked, because she needed to hear him say it again. Every last detail. His smile was tired but real. Ruiz is relocating to Miami. The rest of the syndicate is scattering. My assets are being liquidated, the legal ones converted to capital for a new business, the illegal ones seized by the feds. By next month, Amador Perez, the kingpin, won't exist anymore. Who will you be instead? I don't know yet. He looked at her with devastating honesty. I'm hoping you'll help me figure that out. Ashley wanted to cross that threshold, wanted to close the distance and kiss him until neither of them could breathe. But fear was a powerful thing, and trust was something earned in increments, not declarations. I'm still scared, she admitted. I know. I'm scared too. Of what? That I'll mess this up. That I don't know how to be anything except what I was. That you'll wake up one day and realize you deserved better than a reformed criminal trying to play it normal. His voice cracked slightly. That Maya will ask about my past and I won't know how to explain it in a way that doesn't make her look at me like I'm a monster. Ashley's heart broke and mended simultaneously. Then I guess we're both terrified. Guess so. They stood there in silence. Two broken people trying to figure out how to build something whole. The rain started on a Thursday. Ashley was at the shelter she'd gone back to volunteer, to help other women navigate the system she'd survived when Amador found her. He was soaked through, hair plastered to his skull, expensive suit ruined by the downpour. The deal's done, he said without preamble. Signed, sealed, legally binding. I'm out, completely. Ashley's hands trembled. Amador, I can't undo what I've been. He was speaking fast, like he'd rehearsed this and needed to get it out before courage failed. I can't erase the things I've done or the lives I've damaged. I can't give you a past that doesn't include violence and illegal operations and moral compromises that would make decent people sick. But I'm choosing what I'll be. And I choose you. Both of you, if you'll have me. Then he dropped to one knee in the rain, on the shelter's cracked front steps, and Ashley's vision blurred with tears. You gave up everything, she whispered. No. His voice was rough, absolute. I gave up nothing. Everything is standing right in front of me. Ashley pulled him to his feet and kissed him like breathing, like drowning, like finally coming home after years of being lost. The rain poured around them, and she didn't care, because for the first time since the blizzard, since before the blizzard, since maybe her whole broken life, she believed that things could actually be okay. Yes, she said against his mouth. Yes. You absolute idiot. Yes. 6 months later, Ashley stood in the back of Maya's elementary school gymnasium, hand tucked into Amador's, watching her daughter stand on a small stage in front of 50 other children and their parents. If you're scared and need help, Maya was saying, her voice clear and confident. You can do the rescue signal, like this. She demonstrated, thumb tucked under 4 fingers, hand raised high. But it only works if someone brave enough is looking. Someone who cares enough to stop and help. Ashley felt Amador's hand tighten around hers. They'd built something impossible over those 6 months. Amador had opened a security consulting firm using his strategic mind and connections for protection services, corporate risk assessment, crisis management, all legal, all legitimate. He worked insane hours learning to operate in a world with rules and regulations, and some days Ashley could see how much it exhausted him, how foreign it all felt. But he never complained, never looked back. Ashley had enrolled in online classes, finishing the degree she'd abandoned when she married Jason, business administration. Maybe she'd help run Amador's company someday. Maybe she'd start her own. The possibilities felt endless now that survival wasn't the only goal. Maya was thriving. New school, new friends, new confidence. She'd stopped flinching at loud noises, started sleeping through the night, laughed constantly, and the sound filled their home, the actual home they'd moved into last month, purchased legally, full of furniture they'd picked out together with a joy Ashley had thought was impossible. She calls you Dory now, Ashley whispered as Maya finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause. Did you know that? Amador's voice was rough when he answered. Yeah. She said Amador is too hard to say, but Dory is easy, and Dory is brave. Are you brave? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Ashley saw everything they'd survived reflected in his eyes. The blizzard, the shelter, the confrontation with Jason, The choice to walk away from power in favor of love. With you two? He glanced at Maya, who'd spotted them and was waving frantically, her smile bright enough to power the sun. I'm anything you need me to be. They collected Maya after the assembly, and she chattered the entire walk to the car about the presentation, about her friend Oliver who did the signal wrong and made everyone laugh, about the pizza party they were promised if everyone practiced safety rules. At the car, Maya reached up without hesitation, slipped her small hand into Amador's large one. He held on like it was the only thing in the world worth protecting, because it was. Ashley watched them, this man who'd been built for violence learning gentleness, this child who'd known too much fear learning to trust, and felt something settle in her chest. Not happiness. Exactly. Something deeper. Something like peace. They weren't perfect. Some nights Amador still woke in cold sweats, haunted by choices he couldn't undo. Some days Ashley still flinched at shadows, still expected Jason to materialize despite being locked away for the next 25 years. They were both still healing, still learning, still figuring out how to be people who chose love over survival. But they were doing it together, and that made all the difference. Ice cream? Amador suggested as they buckled Maya into her car seat. Yes! Maya shrieked. Ashley laughed, leaned up to kiss him. Ice cream. But only if you let Maya pick the flavor this time. Last time she picked bubblegum with gummy bears. And you ate it anyway. Well. Amador's smile was softer than she'd ever seen it. Yeah, I did. They drove through the city as the sun set, Maya singing off-key in the back seat, Ashley's hand resting on Amador's knee, and for the first time in either of their lives, the future looked less like something to survive and more like something to build, one choice at a time, one day at a time, together. Did this story warm your heart? Please kindly hit subscribe so you don't miss more emotional stories like this. Thank you.